Okay, so today I'm going to walk you guys through a couple different things. One, I'm just going to kind of quickly go over some graphite um, refillable pencil tips and tricks. I know a few of you guys have used these type of pens or pencils in class before, and they're really common for architectural drafting, so I'm just going to go over real quick the different lead types. Also, this is the type of pencil sharpener. It's like the twisty kind that kind of move like this. Few guys should probably have these tools already, but I'm just gonna kind of walk you guys through in case you haven't used them that much. So for these types of pencils, it's like the kind where like the big piece of lead really comes out. So a guide that I always use, so you'll see usually on the packaging, it has usually some sort of label on it being 4H, 2H, HB, 2B, and then in this case, if you could see that, 4B. So pretty much what they mean. So from starting with your 4B over here is going to be your darkest shaded lead, so it's actually the softest lead, all the way up here till your 4H, or it's your hardest lead, so it's going to look the lightest. And depending on what, if you buy these in like a kit or like a pack, usually these are the common sizes. You have 4H, 2H, HB, 2B, and 4B. But there also is, so the B's could go all the way up to 8B, and the H's could go all the way up to 9H. And then you also have your 3H in between, and between 2H and HB you have your H and F, and then between your HB and 2B you have your B, and then also your 3B between these. But these are your most common lead strengths that you'll most likely use. These are the ones that I use since it does have a pretty decent range. But I do recommend also getting on this side kind of the larger, or something more towards 8B, and also maybe 1 or 2 pencils towards the higher end of the H's, just so you could have very precise lines, or if you're shading, you could have a very soft pencil that you're working with. So with that being said, these are the materials that we're going to be working with today. We just have that pencil I was talking about. We have our ruler. I like to use this style eraser, especially for sketching. It's like the push-up kind. The pencil sharpener, and as well as just a regular pencil for shading. So, grab our blank piece of paper here, or you guys could be sketching in your sketchbooks. And kind of the purpose of today's tutorial, like I said, is in a couple parts. So just went over the graphite strengths, and now, as I kind of mentioned in class, I'm going to walk you guys through how to kind of roughly sketch your either furniture pieces, or you could also use this method in the future if you're just, I don't know, sitting on a bench in some city and you quickly want to sketch out an architectural, I don't know, element that you see on a building that you could bring back and use in your own work, or wherever you find yourself and you need to sketch something where a picture just doesn't quite do it justice. So these methods can kind of be used for multiple things, but for today I'm just going to focus on sketching the chair, your guys' chair. For my chosen chair, I decided to go with the tulip chair, since a few of you had quite a few interests and I don't believe anyone chose it. So I'm just gonna have, the reference is gonna be right here, and I'm just gonna start sketching that for the day. So, and again, these sketches really aren't meant to have those perfect proportions or perfect lines and perfect angles like the plan oblique sketches do. They're really just meant to give an accurate representation of the object, but without all the mathematical kind of measurements and angles that kind of go into it. So, with that being said, you're going to want to start out your sketches with probably something between the 4H and 2H strength. So I'm going to grab a 4H. And the reason why I am using a 4H for the beginning of a sketch is mostly because the lines are going to be very thin and very light and easily erasable. Whereas if you started with a B or a 2B or a 4B, they're going to be a lot darker and sometimes harder to erase. So I'm just going to start with just a vertical line and a horizontal line. And these don't have to be at, 90 degrees or anything like that, but just so that they're straight. Actually, I'm going to move that down just a little bit more. So just like we used kind of those cross sections to create the wedges of the tape that we did on Wednesday, these are going to be similar in helping with just the basic proportions of your chair. So I'm just going to add another line here. So this is going to be the base of the chair. And this is going to be the bottom of the seat. So what we want to do is just roughly start sketching with most likely circles, or if your chair is more rectangular in its shape, start with like the overall bigger shapes. So like, for example, if you were to box up your chair in a box that were to fit the chair perfectly, draw that box first at whatever angle you want it to be. So with that being said, for the tulip chair, I'm just going to draw the bigger circles or the bigger shapes first. So I'm going to start with the base here. And again, I'm using these horizontal and vertical lines as a rough guide on how I want my base circle to be sketched. And if you guys take a look at my reference photo, it's kind of at a slightly top down to the side view. So that's why I'm slightly angling or squishing these circles. So then for the seat, since it is a top-down angle, this circle is going to be roughly similar to the base. So again, we have these 4 points that we're going to draw our base or bottom of the seat with, just like we did in our exercising class. And again, you want to hold your pencil fairly light. You don't want to press too hard on the paper. You want to be very light in your lines, because even with the 4H, because of the lead being so hard, actually can indent your paper. So you want to be very light in your preliminary areas of your sketch, just so everything's easily erasable after you're done. So next I'm going to kind of just draw that iconic chair leg, and again use those vertical lines kind of for that assistant. And if you guys remember, and according to the reference, the tulip chair also has these types of wedges that connect the stem of the chair to the seat and the base. So we're just going to want to draw those in. And again, very rough, just based on the image that you're looking at. Like I said, these don't have to be perfect representations. Just rough enough to get really the essence and design of the chair, but without having to spend the time on exact angles and things like that. So what's next is we're going to build up these sides. So I'm going to extend these rough vertical lines just a little bit. Kind of coming off, if you look at my reference, coming off side here. Roughly like that. So again, just get those basic dimensions, and just kind of look at your image or your reference that you're using as just an overall whole, and kind of focus on the bigger aspects of your sketch rather than looking at the details first, because you could always go back in and adjust the detailing a little bit later on into this process. So actually this bows out just a little bit more than I had it. So now we kind of see the rough form of the chair really coming together. There we go. And now we'll kind of just start to clean up these lines just a little bit. All right, so there is our kind of outline sketch. And to really add to the look and feel of your sketches, you could obviously leave it as an outline, but I also want you guys to practice some shadowing techniques, because that really does elevate your sketch to the next level. So after you kind of erase some areas and really defined your outlines of your chair, of your structure, you're gonna then take your pencil and replace it with one of the softer leads. And I always actually draw on the back of my cases. I always draw the order of the H's to B's, just so I know and reference that later. So actually we're going to want to jump in with the 2B and really darken up those outlines and get a much cleaner line work with what we have already drawn with the 4H. And just to quickly demo how to use this pencil sharpener, you guys could see, let's see, kind of see these two holes, smaller holes towards the top. Those are actually the amount that you put the lead into the holes gives you the perfect length it needs to sharpen. So then once you've sharpened your pencil, like I said, you're going to move kind of like the black part first, and then start rotating with your pencil so you don't break any of the lead. And actually I'm going to do that again here real quick. about halfway through is then when you could start moving with your pencil. Always start at the base of the pencil, not up at the top. And just use kind of that white cotton pad in the middle just to wipe off any excess lead. So I realized that the video cut out just a little bit, but it's okay. The next step, so after you've switched over your pen to that softer lead, you're going to want to create an outline of all your specific line work that we just went over in the harder lead. So you're just going to outline all of this area, and I also skipped this part so you guys don't have to watch over and over. So you just want to go over the outlines of your chair that we just drew in a softer lead, so it makes it darker. And you're just going to do this all the way around through all your line work. Then the next step would be shading. And this really emphasizes your sketch so much so, and it is a really good practice of how light influences objects, which could be very important, especially when you are sketching objects in real time, and maybe the way the light shines through is what makes, or is what drawn you to that piece of architecture that you want to sketch, or object, or piece of furniture, or whatever it is. So what you want to get is these, let's see, can you see that? They're like these paper tube like pencil blenders. They're pretty cheap at either Hobby Lobby or All Media. And what you want to do is so grab just an extra piece of scrap paper or another page in your sketchbook, and you're just going to take your 2B or 4B pencil and just create a bunch of scribbles and make this kind of dark patch of lead so you're able to pick it up with your blender tool. So once you've done that, like I said, since the video skipped just a little bit, I actually kind of already started doing the base. But what you're going to want to do, so take that patch that you just filled in, you're going to rub your kind of cardboard rolled blender in the patch, just so that you start to pick up that lead on the tip of the blender. And then when you do it this way, it makes your shadows really clean without seeing too many pencil lines or things like that in an attempt to shade without it. So I would highly recommend getting this if you don't have it already. So once you've rubbed that around pretty good, if you could see, I could already started at the base. So if you take a look at the reference images, just think about how light would hit it. So for this example, the light is coming in this direction, coming in from this way, especially since the chair is slightly turned on the ground. It's not a straight face-on view. So even without a super harsh light in the way that you took the picture, you still should be able to sketch it in a way that just shows the perspective that you're working with as well. So with the base, of course, since this is the main stem of the chair, you're going to want to shade in the back side of it. You're going to want to take your eraser and use that for the highlights. Since we aren't working with any sort of white colored pencils or markers or anything like that, the eraser is going to be the tool to do so. And because, keep in mind, this is also like a plastic material, it's going to have quite a bit more shadowing and shading than something made out of fabric. And the same goes for a lot of the chrome tubing that could be seen in many of your guys' furniture selections as well. So like I said, keep in mind using your perspective and or light source as a way to inform you where the shadows should go. So, just as we shaded the back of this, we're going to do more of the underside of the chair, since it is the part that will not be seen or get too much light. Same with this side of the chair. And of course, the harder you push on your blender, the more lead that it will pick up or leave behind. And again, we'll just go back in with our eraser and kind of make those highlight points. And what you can do with your eraser is just, instead of kind of scribbling to erase, you'll just kind of dab or dot with your eraser to kind of get a more like blended erased look, so it's not so kind of black and white with the way that you erase. And what you can do too, if there's some really extra dark parts that you want to focus on, is you're just going to go back to using your 4B pencil, and just take the pencil and just add to those dark areas. Again, not by pushing too hard, but just very lightly. You could get the lead in there. And you can still take your blender to really smooth that out. Alright, and there you have it, your finished sketch. So next part 2, is I'm going to demo how to get your measurements and specifics off of Illustrator that I mentioned on Friday. Okay, so for part 2, I said I would show you guys how to kind of digitally measure the photos that you take of your chairs. So there's a few ways you guys could do this. I think I mentioned on Friday you could use Illustrator, but SketchUp and Rhino have all similar tools. So I'm just going to demo it on SketchUp since it's probably a little closer to Rhino. I would use Rhino, I guess, at first, but I do not have enough room on this computer to do so, so SketchUp will be pretty close representation of that. So make sure you do, if you're using SketchUp, there is a set of templates you could use, so just do plan, view, and inches. Then what you're going to want to do is upload your image. So you go import, and you'll kind of see in this bottom right corner how big your image is going to appear in the software. And I know from measuring and doing my own research, the tulip chair is 32 inches tall. So we're definitely going to want to scale this way down best you can, and then we could go in and fix it from here. So what I always like to do, and this is maybe like a cheat way of doing it, but I'll just draw like a little rectangle for reference, and we'll just go 2 feet 8 inches since that is 32. So then it rescales our rectangle to the height that I need to have it. So we'll stick our measurement tool and then rescale the image to fit the exact measurements. And keep in mind, we're not just doing the image, it's the chair itself. So we'll go to the very bottom and the very top of the image. And then we can get rid of our rectangle. So what you also want to do is keep utilizing the measurement tool to kind of get the basic architecture of your chair. So we'll just continue to make, we'll continue to make these lines at every possible point that would be helpful. So that's the ends of the chair, the dimensions, or excuse me, the center point to your curves, which would be here. There we go. All right, then all of our horizontal rule lines, we'll do one at each height of the armchairs. So then once you have that figured out or measured out, what we're going to want to start doing is what the challenging part was while we were at Main Street Modern, which was getting the measurements of the curves of certain parts of your chair. So like for the tulip chair, for example, the shadow indicates that this kind of swoops backward. So there's a few ways you could do this accurately. So the first way is you're going to go in your tools and hit dimensions. And I'm also sure that Rhino has something similar, but just for SketchUp, this would be the tool you would use. And we're going to want to just simply start actually back to your measurement tool. We want to get there you go. So those rule lines are really shaping up this curvature right here. So we'll go back to Tools, Dimensions, and then we're just going to start labeling all of these. So as you could see, so when you were, if you were to make this, the length of from each access point, so access point meaning this point right here to this point right here is the length of that area plus the curve. So that would be the first step that we would want to have if and when you decide to make a model of this. And again, we're using that original starting point as a basis, because that is essentially where the curve starts. And we just can keep following this all the way around till you'll need it. So you have the physical lengths of the two touch points of the curve. Next step is to get the radius of the curves that you do see. So we'll zoom in here. And we're actually going to want to get our arc tool, or a 2-point arc tool. And we're going to start at the intersection point, or the point that we started all of these measurements with. And then we're going to take it to the very we could use this here. Or our, excuse me, dimensions tool, and get the radius. So the radius is 3/8 of an inch. So we'll do that on every curve we see, using those guidelines as helpful points of starting and ending points. Then we'll always just get our radius of the curve. So if we go up to this section here, we'll go back to our arc tool. Oops. Find that curve, get the radius. So now we know what that is. And if we go up here to the top of the chair, we'll do the same thing. Get our arc tool and find that curve. Same with these guys over here. And because this chair is sitting at a perspective right now, the curves are going to have obviously slightly different radius angles. So when you do end up using any of your images or images of your chairs, always try to get one that is a plain, straight front view. So then it's symmetrical. So then we'll do the same with some of the curves in the arm. Get the radius. And curves in the other corner of the arm. And you could pretty much do this all the way around until you get all the radius angles that you need. And for example, if you had an area that, like on this chair, the curve goes outwards, and this might be a little bit better at a few different angles, you could tell that the shape is slightly concave, and you could get the radius of that curve using this tool as well. And it really helps with the use of the shadowing here. And you'll see that the radius is even the same. So hopefully that helps, especially with those who are doing the model in Rhino or 3D printed, that should help with getting those curved measurements either from your picture, or if you do find some sort of source online, that could be helpful too. But you could definitely use that dimensions tool within Rhino or SketchUp to get kind of the curvature and radius of certain curved shapes, as well as it helps with the distance of these points to get the overall scale of how large this curve actually extends down, as well as when its extension is across. So I would create as many of these as you can all the way around your chair. And if the lines start to get a little too much or a little too complicated, I would just create, have multiple images in one document. Maybe this image will just be highlighting the angles and curves on this side. Then I kind of have an image right next to it highlighting the angles and curves and lines on this side, and then so on and so forth for the base and, things like that. So hopefully that helps. Feel free to ask me any questions within class or any specific weird kind of shapes or angles that your chair might have that I didn't cover today.